Welcome to the Physical Product Movement, a podcast by Fiddle. We share stories of the world's most ambitious and exciting physical product brands to help you capitalize on the monumental change in how, why, and where consumers buy. I'm your host, Ken Ojuka.
Today's episode is extra special. Most of you are accustomed to hearing our founder, Ken Ojuka, interview all of our amazing founder guests. Today, the tables turn and Ken gets interviewed by G. Stephen Cleere on the Nexxt Level Brands Podcast. That's right, this is our first official recast. They talk about Ken's history as an entrepreneur and CPG founder himself, how he helped his friend start his own co-manufacturer, and how that led him to create Fiddle. You'll hear how supply chain and production management are the foundation of successful CPG brands, and exactly how Fiddle helps you source ingredients, track all of your inventory, fulfill orders on time, and prevent stockouts so your customers and partners love buying from you. I hope you enjoy this episode with Ken and Stephen.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Steve Cleere. Thanks for joining us here at another Nexxt Level Brands podcast. Our show is being brought to you today by Nexxt Level Brands CPG Community, a merger of the experience of Next Level Marketing and the educational resources of Kitchen to Shelf. The Nexxt Level Brands community brings together CPG entrepreneurs at all stages of growth, providing knowledge, training, courses, and networking, not only with your fellow entrepreneurs, but also key partners in the industry, including packaging, finance, and e-commerce. More details are available at nextlevelbrands.com. That's next with two X's, nextlevelbrands.com, what you need to know to grow. And we've got a great show for you today, folks. Joining me today on the show is Ken Ojuka. He is the founder and CEO of Fiddle Software. And Fiddle, great name, but Fiddle Software specifically for CPG and solves a number of the problems out there. Ken has a background also in health and wellness and fitness and tech. And we're going to talk about CPG and its effects. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Glad to be here.
So for the folks in the audience that may not know, and I'm sure it's a lot of them, but let's dive right into what is Fiddle and what does it do?
And again, thanks for having me on your podcast. I'm excited to have this conversation. I've been listening to some of the other podcasts, and I think you're doing a great service for the community, and your podcast is awesome. So, what is Fiddle? Fiddle is inventory platform for CPG brands and manufacturers. So we play in the inventory space. So everything in our system is built on an inventory foundation. But we help you to bring in sales orders from a variety of different sales channels, e-commerce, wholesale, some distributors. Bring those in, helps you to see what you can fulfill on, what you have in inventory, what you need to purchase, or what you might need to manufacture. And then it helps you with the purchase orders and the work orders to actually produce the product if you do it in-house, or to bring in the product if you use a co-packer or manufacturer. So that's sort of the scope of the product. But we try to give entrepreneurs and food and beverage brands full visibility into what's actually going on in their company. Try to eliminate some of these surprises where you stock out of something that you didn't keep an eye on, but just really kind of give you an insight into what is actually going on, what you need to do, and how you can grow.
And all that obviously so incredibly important for growing companies. I actually spoke with someone this morning who was saying in the course of the conversation, they have bottle caps. And their supplier just sent him a note and said, our lead time now is 40 weeks. That's 40 weeks.
Crazy. Yeah, crazy.
And he goes, I don't know where we're going to be in 40 weeks. He goes, I know we're going to need caps, but am I going to need what I did last year? The pandemic. I mean, yeah, very, very tough to figure that out. There's a lot of moving parts. And it seems to me as one of the real challenges. So how do you guys fit in with what companies may have now, whether it's the Excel spreadsheet that the bookkeeper is working on, or Shopify, or how does it all fit in?
It would be helpful to kind of talk a little bit about, one of the things we were talking on pre-show, which is we just see a lot of food and beverage brands popping up everywhere. And, the world has kind of changed where instead of going through the traditional retail channels before you can actually build a healthy business, customers or these customers of ours, these CPG brands are actually going direct to the customer first.
Right.
They're yeah, and that's just a massive trend. I think everybody's aware of it. Customers are willing to try out new products. I think Amazon's kind of trained us all on that, to expect sort of infinite choice, and next day delivery. And so anyway, people are willing to try new products. And so we just see a lot of these CPG brands popping up to fill the need. And generally, when we approach them, they may have tried another system, but a lot of people are actually just coming directly from spreadsheets. The typical stack is they're selling their product on Amazon. They've got a Shopify or WooCommerce store. They may be in one of these other marketplaces like a Fair Market.
Right.
And then generally that's what they're kind of using to manage their business. And then they, take care of accounting in like a QuickBooks or a Xero or even Zoho. But one of these online accounting platforms. And so that's generally the stack. And we fit in, very nicely with all these where we can import your stuff either from a spreadsheet or we can import your products directly from, QuickBooks or WooCommerce, and then integrate with your accounting tools to be able to report the numbers back to the accountant so that they're happy.
Does this, if for instance, I'm production and, I'm trying to run production on a daily basis or a weekly basis or whatever. Does Fiddle fit in a way that I can get a handle on, for instance, how much packaging I may have left, for certain SKUs and, or of the raw materials I have, what I have left and what I need to do to purchase?
Yeah, Steve, I'm really glad you asked that because while we talk about CPG brands, we actually got our start in the manufacturing side. We actually built Fiddle inside of a contract manufacturer. And so you can imagine the inventory needs from a contract manufacturing side.
Oh, yeah.
They needed to know exactly what you just described, right? If I'm going to go into production, I not only need to know all my packaging requirements, but I also need to know all the raw materials that go into my product, all the raw ingredients. And of course, you need to know what you have, but you also need to know, hey, based on this run I'm trying to produce, how many can I actually produce? How much will I have left afterwards? And do I have enough to fulfill this other order that's coming in, which might be, the same order, the same actual SKU, or it might be, one of your SKUs that maybe has 80% overlap. And so you definitely need to know, okay, what's reserved for this production run. And then what are the requirements going to be for the next production run of a slightly different product? And so, yes, that's exactly the field we play in. And I would actually say production is one of the main reasons that people choose us is that while we still sell to contract manufacturers, the fact that we understand the production needs kind of sets our product aside, apart and helps us to be able to fulfill this need. So, yeah, so short answer, yes.
When you're working with clients and talking to potential clients and stuff, we in the marketing business, we always talk about addressing pain points. For those emerging brands, what are the main pain points that you guys address, or what do you hear from them in terms of, wow, this might be able to help me?
Yeah, and I've done quite a bit of marketing myself, and I understand sort of the nuances and how difficult it is to encapsulate these pain points, or I don't know if you're familiar with jobs to be done, that whole framework and methodology. Yeah. It's actually a lot of work to uncover what exactly those things are and why people are choosing you, and so we've put a lot of energy into it. But in short, it's I am growing. My business is getting more complicated. I went from one SKU to 10 SKUs, or I went from one channel, I was just selling on Shopify. Now I added Amazon, I added Fair Market, and I added some distributors that are now selling my product. So I added channels. And things are getting complicated, and I'm dropping the ball. We're running out of inventory, where our production is getting delayed because we're missing, some parts that we need in order to produce. Or, you're disappointing people. You're saying, hey, I can actually, I'll provide you with 100,000 bottles of this. And then you have to send them that dreaded email where it's like, hey, looks like we're actually behind on, I can offer you a discount, or I can give you part of it now, or it just looks really bad, right? And so those are the main pain points. It's somebody that's growing, things are getting more complicated, and they need to formalize and systematize their process.
And to my friend's bottle cap issue, almost everyone that I know of is experiencing extensions of normal supply chain, whether it's raw ingredients or certainly anything with corrugate or plastic, or basically anything that comes in a truck or a container, which is everything, right? So this idea of being able to plan ahead, be accurate about the planning, even, more important, very, very, very important. You mentioned, Ken, about the birth rather, and being with the contract manufacturing and then coming over. Was the contract manufacturing CPG based, or did you see within CPG a white space or an opportunity because this stuff has to be so closely monitored?
Yeah, and I'm happy to answer that. To your previous comment, though, about how in this day and age, especially with COVID, people are seeing delays all over the place. That's certainly something that we've seen as well. One of the things that from a contract manufacturer standpoint is contract manufacturers have to have multiple suppliers for certain products, for certain packaging components.
Right.
And so, one of the features that we have in Fiddle is the ability to get your pricing from a variety of different suppliers. So for this one inventory item, I want to add pricing from a variety of different suppliers. I want to collect the MOQs and then the different pricing price points. And so you can add a primary, secondary, and tertiary supplier for each of these inventory items. And so that helps with that. If your primary or your preferred supplier can't do it, you're already on top of it, where you can reach out to your secondary and third suppliers for that. And so it's helped. While we can't really solve the delay problems, you should be able to have the information to have an action plan when they do happen. So,
and Ken, Fiddle, in terms of working, do you guys install quote unquote Fiddle at the clients, in the client's computers within their enterprise system, or do you have it in the cloud somewhere, or both?
So we're born in the cloud, and that's actually very deliberate. And this kind of goes to the founding story, your previous question. I actually come from CPG background, and particularly supplements. We used to sell whey protein, some weight loss supplements,
right? Yep.
Some skin care. That's really what took off for our business, and so we were a brand selling that and actually having some pretty good success. I have a background in SEO marketing. And we were able to rank for some pretty good keywords and get some traffic and get some attention to our product. We also had a lot of success with affiliates, doing affiliate marketing. And what happened is that a buddy of mine, Ryan, and I, we were sharing an office. We had different businesses, but we shared an office. And at about the same time, we started running into the same issue, which was we had sales coming in. We had lots of traffic, lots of people wanting our product, but we were having a hard time getting our product in stock and keeping it in stock. Our manufacturers were just kind of jerking us around a little bit and basically just not keeping their promises, right?
Yeah.
And so that, we would take all the blame, of course, because we were the face and customers were upset. And so after a particularly bad episode where my buddy Ryan ended up losing a pretty big deal because of this issue, he threw his hands up and said, forget this. I'm going into manufacturing. I'm going to figure this out. And I was happy. I was more than happy to support him in this because I wanted him to be my manufacturer, right? I didn't want to deal with all these other guys. I wanted to deal with him. And so I actually invested in his company. I bought his first machine for him. We drove down to LA, bought an encapsulator, put it in the back of a U-Haul truck and drove it back and then put it into his first facility. And he started manufacturing and things just took off for him. It turned out that he found a ready market for a lot of these internet type businesses where they're smaller, but they're more nimble, they're quick, they're impatient, and they want product today, and they experiment with a lot of different products. He found a ready market for that. And so he was very responsive to them and their needs and grew really, really fast. So when he hit about 6 million in revenue, he approached me and he said, look, the software for this industry is terrible. It's awful. We've tried several different tools. I can't get my guys to use it. They keep going back to spreadsheets because this stuff is just too hard, but we really need something. Could you come in and build something for me? I'll be honest, I dragged my feet. I didn't know too much about manufacturing at that point. I really didn't want to know too much about manufacturing. But he twisted my arm and convinced me to start building this for them. And the understanding was that we would build this for his company. And then, I would retain ownership and be able to take it to market and sell it to other people. In this process, not only did we uncover the needs of manufacturers, but we also uncovered the needs of the brands that he was manufacturing for. We saw that they faced a lot of the same problems. There's probably an 80% overlap in terms of the stuff that they want to track. And then there's some specific stuff for manufacturers, but there's specific stuff for the CPG brands, and so that's kind of the birth of Fiddle. We sell to contract manufacturers, to brands that manufacture in-house, or even brands that maybe they use a co-packer, they don't manufacture in-house, but they have a hand in the production in terms of they might provide the raw materials for their co-packers, or maybe they use multiple co-packers, so they're managing that. And so that's sort of the sweet spot where we play.
And Ken, let us know, where can folks find out more information about Fiddle?
Yeah, the best place is just fiddle.io. Just go there. There's a little chat widget. You can just chat us, and any questions that you have, we're happy to help. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm the only Ken Ojuka on LinkedIn. So just last name is Ojuka, and I'm pretty responsive on LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. Yeah. And I'm sure people will have a level of interest. Let me ask you about setting up. So if I'm and again, we all know dozens of people in this spot now because it's a lot of people in the space, but let's say I'm still doing some of my own manufacturing, but I also have a co-packer for my larger lines, as it were. How does Fiddle basically fit in or replace the stuff that I'm doing now, which is primarily Excel based, let's just say?
Yeah. So we go through and we bring in all of your, you can upload your customers, you can upload your suppliers, you can upload your inventory items, and that could include the finished goods that you actually sell on your website or on Amazon or wherever. But you can also input all of the raw materials that you use and build out the bill of materials for your inventory items. And so once you do that, then it's just a matter of what part of your system needs help. And so very commonly we see people just want a place to put in all of the sales orders that are coming in, so that they can see an overview of what their demand looks like and what their production needs might be. And so you get a PO from Albertsons or from Kroger or whoever your customers are, from KeHE. Put those into Fiddle. There's a lot of automation that we can do to get those in automatically, whether it's from EDI or from some of these other platforms. And then you can fulfill on those. Okay. Do you need to then send a PO to your supplier in order to produce that? Or do you actually have enough inventory in stock to just fulfill on it right away? Fiddle gives you visibility into all of that, so
Got it. Right. And yeah, I know so many people that could use that help for sure. In terms of the kind of the multi-component, so how does it tie to things like packaging or things to like raw materials that you might have to bring in?
Yeah. So in Fiddle, you'd set up your inventory item. You would add a bill of materials. So your bill of materials might list some raw materials that go into the product, and then also the packaging components. And as you do that, you can create a work order. Let's say that you want to create a work order for 1,000 units. Think of work orders like a production run. You're going to produce 1,000 units of this.
Right.
Fiddle will look into inventory and will tell you, and it's got a little bar that will tell you, okay, all green, you have it in stock, right? You have enough of this raw material. Yep. If it's red or yellow, you may not have any at all, or you may have part of it in stock. And so then you'll know what you need to do. You can just directly from that screen. We're really big on not sending you all over the app to do basic things. Directly from that screen, you can just start building a PO and cut a PO to your supplier in order to bring that in. And so that's kind of the visibility into, okay, this is my inventory item, but it's made up of all of these other items and these packaging components. And so you can see what exactly you need to bring in.
Yeah, and one of the challenges I think too is you mentioned kind of at the top of the show, which is if you were selling to 4 or 5 major retailers, then okay, it's multiple orders, and that's really your challenge. But when you're selling all over the place, you're selling everywhere from you're in that scaling stage where you're selling to maybe local co-ops, but you're also having to ship product to Fair or Bound or whatever, right? The complexity level has increased greatly in the last few years in terms of that. Opportunities have increased, but the complexity level, and I think it's very hard for some people to keep track of all of that and understand where you're going. The big thing to me from the marketing standpoint and from a counseling standpoint is for people to understand what the true cost is of going out of stock on any of those platforms. You can get discontinued from going out of stock at some retailers. But at Amazon, for instance, it's the cost is just horrible to go out of stock. Mm-hmm. And it's not just the business you lost. It's also your customers going and finding alternative products, maybe not coming back, working with that. And even though Amazon's really pretty good at giving you inventory levels and stuff, and some of the other platforms are too, when there's limitations. So Amazon looks back 60 days at your velocity for your inventory levels and how many days you have left. And if you're a seasonal product, well, particularly a fourth quarter product, the last 60 days doesn't mean anything. It's right. The next 60 days. And you kind of have to figure that out on your own. And, some software help in that area obviously is great, but just don't go out of stock. That's the whole idea. How does, in terms of the like distributors and stuff, how does Fiddle treat distributors? Is that considered a customer and then, by PO and stuff?
Yeah. It is considered a customer. In Fiddle, you can create so we allow you to upload the PO from that distributor. You create that sales order, lists out all the multiple line items. And it really does just give you this insight directly from the PO. What do I have? What do I need to bring in? And how long is that going to take? Right. And to your point about, being able to see the sales velocity, we also have what we call a consumption report. And it gives you the ability to filter, you could see what your consumption has been in the last week, last month, last 90 days. And we allow you to go out to 180 days is how far we go back.
Right.
But it gives you that sales velocity. And usually that's enough for someone to have a pretty clear picture, what their inventory needs might be, how many days of inventory they have left. And so you're right, though. Some of these channels are very punishing on stockouts. Amazon being one of them. Not only do your customers go and buy an alternative product, but Amazon's going to drop your listing, and hurt your ranking based on that.
Yeah.
And so, and then just in general, I think that buyers need to feel confident that when they reach out to you for your product, that they're going to get it when they need it, and so even if it may not hurt you directly, like an Amazon where they drop your ranking, that buyer is just a little less likely to buy from you the next time, if they're having problems getting product.
Yeah, and knowing kind of what you sell across, aggregating all of that across time, because a lot of people who are on like Fair and Abound, a couple of examples, it's usually a longer cycle. So you need to go back that to maybe 180 days, which you certainly need to go back 60 to see kind of what the turns and stuff are in there, because they don't not necessarily high volume like you would do off Amazon or whatever with single units or little packages or whatever. It's just a different flow, but it all has to go into the same production forecast and readout in that. What happens with when you're trying to mix, I guess, different SKUs and different different sizes or whatever? Can you also balance with Fiddle the inventory levels on the raw materials that go in?
Yes. Maybe, do you mind asking that question again? I want to make sure that I understand, because there's two different ways that we.
So what I was trying to get was this: I have a line of products, and let's just say it's the tomato flavor, but I have the tomato flavor in a 12 ounce, a 15 ounce, an 8 ounce, and I have it in a food service pack that's 5 pounds. Can I have all those independently in Fiddle that if I get an order, that it draws down what my available inventory is of the raw product, which is tomato paste?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that's one of the common scenarios that you see in a contract manufacturer, is that you may actually have a single raw material that you use across a variety of different products. And so contract manufacturers, of course, love that because they can sort of bulk buy that raw material and use it across many different products. And then, of course, mark it up and charge the customer.
Right.
The
excess.
Yeah. So it's actually a very common scenario, and Fiddle handles that just fine.
And then the other part that I think a bit of a challenge is a number of people I know who use co-manufacturers, but one or more of the ingredients they purchase and provide to the co-man. So they have to keep track of not only what the stuff the co-man is supplying, but the stuff that they're responsible for as well, and in the ratios they need to have it. So it's a challenge.
Yeah, it's a big challenge, and throw in there the fact that people may use multiple co-mans, right? So now you've got to track it across different sites. Yeah, and in fact, what you just outlined right there is something that I think is pretty unique to the food and beverage space, in that is very, very, very common. Right. And in other spaces,
yes,
a lot of times you just throw it over to the manufacturer and they deal with it. But in the food and beverage space, for a variety of different reasons that we've discovered in our research with customers and customer development and figuring out the jobs to be done, we've just realized that it's extremely common that somebody's going to provide, maybe some packaging components. That's probably the most common, a label, bottles, whatever.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, even raw materials, I may have some super secret ingredient that I want to, make sure that I control, or for cost reasons, I may want to take over that purchasing. But it's very common that food brands, beverage brands are sourcing the raw materials and then sending it to a co-packer. And so the challenge, of course, is not only to know how much you have, but to make sure that it gets there in time for production. Otherwise, you're going to get pushed out and bumped to the next week or next month, right?
Right, exactly, right, and that can be devastating. That's as bad as going out of stock to the consumer, if not worse. Implication, especially with the way most co-manufacturers are running today, which is at capacity. Just one of those things. Ken, let me ask you. So I've got a small brand. I'm maybe making that transition. I've got a co-packer. I'm trying to scale. I'm getting some more orders. Fiddle sounds great. Sounds like it can address a lot of things that we know need doing, and maybe do a little better than whatever I'm doing at present time. Can we talk a little bit about costs? How you guys work? What is this something that is affordable at a smaller level to CPG, or how do you guys work?
Yeah. We basically got a couple different levels. Depending on the feature set, you can start at $99 a month for our essential package, and then we've got a professional package which is $299, and then we've got a $699 package which gives you more of the production type features, and then that gives you about 5 users, additional users, about $35 a user. And so depending on the size of your brand, that's usually pretty affordable. We also have specials that are always going on. So if somebody goes to the website and hits us up, ask about a special, and we could usually apply one of our discount codes. So
and I can't help but be the salesperson, and that is, folks, for that kind of investment, if you just avoid one out of stock, it more than pays for itself.
Yeah, and in fact, that's what we use all the time on our sales presentations. Yep. and then you also got to think about your spreadsheet might be working, but let's think about quality of life here. This it's so painful. Keeping that spreadsheet up to date. Think about the late nights, doing that. And then it also, prevents you from being able to grow. You hire, another couple people to help you to build your business, and they got to become experts in your spreadsheet, in your special spreadsheet you've been, cultivating for years. There's just better ways to do this, and you can save yourself a lot of heartache and a lot of time, by getting into a system like Fiddle.
But by virtue of just, where you guys have reached out, or folks that have reached out to you, the kind of sizes of businesses or where they are, where do you get your kind of sweet spot for businesses?
Yeah. So it's actually surprising. So with CPG brands, we found that we actually have some businesses that are pre-revenue, right? So they're doing a lot of R&D. So I don't really want to mention their name, but we have a company that's developing a line of plant-based meat alternative products, right?
Yeah.
They've received some venture capital. They're really cool up and coming brand, but they actually haven't released their product yet. So they're doing a lot of R&D, and dealing with a lot of suppliers and running a lot of different tests on what will actually become their final product. And so they're pre-revenue, right? And then we, very common sweet spot, is somebody that's doing, close to $1 million in revenue, so we can start, sort of that spot. That's about when things start getting a little more complicated.
Yep.
You maybe added a couple channels. Our biggest client is doing about 75 million in revenue. And so it's been maybe not surprising, but it's been encouraging to see that somebody could use us to that scale. Right. And they've been just fine. They've been very happy. They're actually one of our best clients. And so that's a pretty wide range, but I'd say probably the majority of our clients fit into the 5 to 10 million range.
Yeah, and it's a good, because that's growing, but they need to have the numbers right at that point. It's not like making a mistake in the ghost kitchen or whatever, and it's like, I can redo the batch. It's a different level for sure. So that brings mind in terms of, so people have an interest, they can go to fiddle.io, right? Yep. And to get more information. Let's talk a little bit about timing and stuff. How long does it take, and how do you get what's the process if someone is interested in learning more and then maybe installing it even?
Yeah, so usually the first step is to just sign up for a demo, and we will go in depth about your process and your needs. We will customize a demo for you and get one of our salespeople to show you the product. Those are pretty insightful. I mean, there's some training that goes on in there, but it's usually an overview of how this could work for you and what the process might look like. Implementation is one of the areas where we really, really try to be better than the products in this space, where, a lot of these products, you could buy it pretty quickly, but it might take you 6 to 9 months to actually implement it and get going. So at Fiddle, I mean, it really depends on you. It's something that we could implement within. I've seen people get up and going within a week. They're fully into Fiddle. And then others, because you're busy and have stuff that's going on and business doesn't stop because, you are implementing Fiddle, you may space that out to, a couple months before you're fully into the software.
Into the space.
Yeah. But it's an area where we're trying to differentiate. It should be easier, implementing something like this, like shouldn't be like I don't want to mention any of our competitors, but where some of these ERP systems, it's like a full year and 5 consultants and this and that before you're even using it.
Yes. Yeah. Coming from the world of data analysis and trade spending analysis, when we were doing that initially, and some of the software programs came out, and it was like, you were going to have a team of people in for weeks, and then you were going to have 3 new hires just to handle and it's like, well, wait a minute, we might be able to, find another way to do this, because it doesn't have to be that complicated if you can get your handle on it, right?
Right.
So but that's great. All right. Well, I think that, obviously folks who, Ken and I were talking earlier about pain points. This is something we both know is out there with a lot of folks, and Fiddle might be something to look into to address that. And if you're growing, it's, it's one of the things that, we both know is a real challenge for a lot of entrepreneurs out there. It's not necessarily the first thing that comes to mind, but it can bring operations to a halt real quick too.
Yeah, we today we actually just had a meeting with the CEO of New Skin. Came into our office. We're talking to him, and it's interesting. He brought up a really good point, which is the smaller companies struggle with this, but the larger companies do too. They told us a story about how they were in a meeting with some the heads of supply chain for Coke. Or some of the other brands. What's the shaving? They bought Dollar Shave Club, Unilever.
Oh, Dollar Shave Club. Yeah.
So these guys are doing huge volumes, right? They're these big global international companies, and this is still a massive pain point for these guys, right? And so it's just something where it's like operationally, the companies that are really winning have a really good handle on this and make investments into this space. I think Amazon has kind of taught us that supply chain can help you to win, right? If you can get better at this, you can grow, you can scale, your business can actually become what you want it to be. And then you have the other case, which is when you fail at this, it can really hurt your brand. Right.
Yep.
So anyway, we see it as a pretty critical area of business. If you're in the physical product space and CPG products, this is an area that's just really important.
Absolutely. Well, hey, Ken, thanks for, taking the time and talking to us today about Fiddle and about the industry in general. A lot of good stuff out there, but appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
We've reached a segment in the program, Ken, where we try to impart from one entrepreneur to fellow entrepreneurs out there a little bit of advice or counsel or a great quote or something that you've used as you were building the business. We call it words to grow by. You have anything for us today?
Yeah. So really been focused on go to market. And I found a quote that I really like. It's by the founder of Twitch. They sold to Amazon for who knows how many billions years ago, but it's Justin Kan, and he talks about how first-time founders are obsessed with product, but second-time founders are obsessed with distribution, right? And I just think it's huge for any of these businesses, for a SaaS business like myself or a physical product. It's all about the distribution. It's how are you going to get customers? Which growth channels are you going to use?
Yeah.
And what's going to work for your business? And then, being obsessed with the numbers around that, because that's how you grow.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. Great. Well, Ken, thanks so much again. And we'll be talking a little bit down the road. I'm sure there's some new things probably coming out, and we're going to want to keep up on them.
Okay. Appreciate it, Steve. It's been great.
Okay. Thanks everyone else too for joining us today on the Nexxt Level Brands Podcast. Our show is brought to you as always by the Nexxt Level Brands CPG community, a merger of the experience of Next Level Marketing and the educational resources of Kitchen to Shelf. If you have a firm that's growing in food, beverage, or health and wellness, you should be part of the Nexxt Level Brands community. Education, resources, workshops, founder coaching, and more. More information is always available at nextlevelbrands.com. That's next with 2 X's, what you need to know to grow. This is Steve Cleere. We'll see you all next week.
The Physical Product Movement Podcast is brought to you by Fiddle. To find out more about Fiddle and how our industry-leading inventory ops platform is giving modern brands and manufacturers full visibility into their inventory and operations, visit fiddle.io. And then make sure to search for Physical Product Movement in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Fiddle, thanks for listening.